So this is just a follow-up video to the video I made about a month ago about how you can use spreadsheets to analyze cycling data. And I didn't really realize that the video quality was so bad on that. Um, so I apologize for that, but I think you'll get the idea from the video anyways. But I finally learned how to use a screen capture software that I downloaded, and so I can give you a little better view of my spreadsheets here. Um, so basically I have all of my years since I started riding road bikes all imported from Garmin, and I have all the information on here that I want to see, like the date, the miles, the duration of the ride, the average speed, the cadence, all that sort of stuff, power, calories. And here I can make notes about what specific route it was, because I do some of these routes pretty frequently. And I have since added some activity codes that up here, they all total up. And I can go to my activities page and I can see how many times I've done specific routes. And I have all this worked out now. I had a few bugs in it last time. Before I had to manually add all this stuff up. Now I have it do it automatically. So that's one improvement I've done. You can also do things like keeping track of your elevation for each month, how many feet you've climbed that month, how many rides you've done on a specific bike, and how many miles. And what I recently did, what I thought would be interesting to do, is look at my average heart rate, so I can see where I spend most of my time as far as heart rate goes. And I can see here that it's mostly between about 133 and 140. And then I have about 10 rides where I was at 145, a couple at like 148, 150. And you can see like where you spend most of your time. So I spend most of my time kind of doing a medium intensity sweet spot. And so that's another cool thing you can do with spreadsheets. You can have it count how many times you've been at what average heart rate, put it into a graph, and then you can very easily see where you spend most of your time when you're in, as far as heart rate, when you're riding the bike. Another cool thing you can do, like I've shown earlier on the previous video, you can see how many miles you've ridden each year and what your average speed was and all that sort of thing. I've talked about the activities page. Another thing I thought would be interesting to do, you can go online and do this, but I thought it'd be neat to have my own gear inch and gear ratio charts that I can plug in whatever cogs I want, chain rings, and it'll give me gear inches and gear ratios. Sometimes that's useful. It's interesting just to have the information, and I don't have to go online necessarily to do it. I added a little calculators page where I can convert miles to kilometers and feet to meters and all that sort of stuff. I also added my power curve stuff. You can look at my kind of pathetic numbers here, but I have my power curves in here, and then I have an interesting 3-zone model chart that someone on the internet pointed me to, and I can figure out what my FTP is and all that stuff, and from there I can figure out where my heart rate zones would be, where I'm in lactate threshold 1 and 2 and that sort of stuff. And these low numbers kind of reflect my sensitive sinus node condition that I was speaking about in a couple of videos ago. how that limits me, and the fact that I'm not really not a very, I don't have a very athletic body type. I mean, I'm an ectomorph, but I'm like total ectomorph. I'm not a real strong person. So, um, I'm on the lower end of the scale as far as watts goes, but then you can also figure out like watts per kilo and all that stuff using this chart. So that's kind of interesting. Some of these fields, you just plug in your weight, and it'll convert to kilograms, and then you can figure out watts per kilo. Spreadsheets are really useful for this sort of stuff. If you like looking at data, even if you don't like looking at data so much, if you don't have like an engineering mindset like me, even something like this, knowing your heart rate zones where you spend most of your time is useful, because you can see if maybe you're always riding too hard, or maybe you could ride harder. And it's interesting that most of my rides are sort of in the medium intensity area. Um, Now, I don't actively look at my heart rate when I'm riding. It's I wear a heart rate monitor. It's keeping track of my heart rate, but I don't actually have it on my bike computer as a field that I can see, because I don't really want to know what that is. I'm just riding by feel. So, but you can look back at the data later and go, oh, here, look, here's where I spend most of my time. So that's kind of useful information to know if you use heart rate when you're riding. Some people I know, they ride just strictly on a feel. They don't have a power meter or heart rate monitor, and that's okay. But when you do have this stuff, you can know when you can see if you're just always killing yourself on every ride. And if you're always killing yourself on every ride, at some point you're going to get to a place where you're just exhausted, and then you're going to actually see your performance go down. And this has actually kind of happened to me, I think, over the last couple of years. All my rides, they're not necessarily really hard rides, but they're cumulative. You do so many of these medium intensity rides, you never do anything really easy, and then after a while your body just kind of gets exhausted, or it plateaus, and you get to a place where you can't really do any better, and then you can actually kind of start going backwards if you start to get aerobic deficiency syndrome, or you have some other challenge like a sensitive sinus node, or you weren't blessed with a really super great cardiovascular and muscular system, as in my case. So I think spreadsheets are really a pretty powerful tool to have in your toolbox if you like to keep track of data. There's just a lot of things you can do with these spreadsheets, and you can customize it to do exactly what you want to do. So there you go. If you found this video useful or interesting, leave me a comment. Let me know. Thanks for watching.